Welcome, welcome. Come on in, grab a seat, come towards the front of the room versus the back so you can make sure you can hear us. Yeah, we're just going to get started in probably like 30 seconds or so. Let people come on in as they can. For those who are here right now, if you see, I'm Greg, by the way. I'm the head of marketing here at Switch. I just posted a message in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. Say hi. I've got Jeff and Ryan here with me, who will be leading the conversation. But this presentation also is recorded. So at the end of the presentation, you'll get an email with a link to the recording. You feel free to forward along to any colleagues that also wants to learn. Welcome, Teresa. Nice to meet you. It's 4:01. I'm going to now say goodbye off the stage. I'll be on the chat to answer any questions, but I'm going to pass it over to Ryan and Jeff to kick this thing off. So take it away, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. So welcome everybody to Effortless EV Charging for Schools. Super excited to have everybody here, and thanks for joining. We've partnered with Foundations for California Community Colleges to make it easy for you all to add charging at your facilities. So just a quick intro before we start. I'm Ryan McDonald. I'm the Business Development Manager at Switch for San Diego.
I am Jeff Chung, Business Development Manager here in Los Angeles. The last 3 years before my time here in Switch, I was working for a full turnkey service provider. So we design, engineering, installation, and rebate applications. Really excited to provide more information about this EV landscape, and I think Ryan's going to take it away.
Awesome. So just wanted to go through a quick agenda. We want to talk about why EV charging now and some background on Switch as well. And then the plan, kind of some key questions to consider as you're developing your game plan for EV charging, the system and what that all entails, the hardware, the software, the networking, getting the stations online, and then service after the fact, and then the path forward. So what you all need to kind of plan and then do the install, manage, and service. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. So just wanted to give a little bit of background on Switch just to kick it off. So we are a turnkey open network EV charging provider. We'll handle everything from design through choosing the hardware to installation, the software management backend, and then also O&M services. So we're basically a one-stop shop. As you can see here, we have over 18,000 chargers installed throughout North America, and that best-in-class network uptime of 98.5%. You can think of that as basically how much the chargers are online. So there's very little times where there's an issue. And usually if there is an issue, we can see that even before your drivers can actually see the issue. So we just wanted to point out a couple of clients who trust Switch. Obviously, we have some schools there, which you guys should be familiar with, like the Toronto Metropolitan University, Regis University, and Portland State University. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about how we can help you guys kind of similarly with EV charging at your facilities. So also, we just wanted to talk about how Switch partnered with FCCC. Mentioned this a little bit, but there's a couple key things that come to mind after this partnership. So some things for you guys to consider are simplified procurement. You can avoid lengthy RFPs. We have preferred pricing, so we're getting you guys best pricing that you can get without having to go to RFP and kind of take everybody down to see what pricing you can get there. We also have tailored solutions for institutions. So there's flexible access management. So you can have different rates for different groups of people, whether that's staff, students, visitors, maintenance. We'll optimize for existing infrastructure and make sure that you're getting the best possible solution for your specific scenario, and then also cost-effective energy management solutions. So first question you're going to ask is why EV charging now? And we just wanted to present a couple of stats that represent this. So EV sales are projected to hit 53% of all cars by 2030, according to the Boston Consulting Group. There's actually supposed to be about 6 to 8 million EVs in California at this time. So this is kind of inevitable, and California is at the forefront of the EV revolution. California also plans to ban sales of gas-powered vehicles by 2035. So basically at that point, ICE, internal combustion engines, will be banned, according to California regulators, and they're going to just be selling EVs from that point on. So EVs are going to continue to grow, and then ICE vehicles will continue to shrink. with that, 1.2 million chargers are going to be needed to support this ambitious goal, according to the CEC. So we're going to need a lot of chargers to support that increase, and schools are going to be at the forefront of that. Workplace, homes. This is kind of where people are going to be charging the most. And then, of course, to tie that all in, FCCC and Switch have teamed up for a seamless, cost-effective solution to make it as easy as possible for you guys to take advantage of adding EV charging at your facilities. So just a quick overview of how you can actually benefit from this. There's a couple different points here. So one thing is that you can enhance your brand reputation.
Ryan, sorry to stop you. Can you share your screen again? It's stuck on the 1.2 million charger slide. If you want to bounce out and bounce back again.
Yeah, let me try that real quick.
Just so that everyone can see what you're seeing. You're saying good things, Ryan, or at least some great stats, but it should be nice to also see what you're seeing.
Apologize for that.
All good. There you go.
Okay, you're seeing the how you benefit screen?
Yeah, carry on.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So I'll just start this one over. Just wanted to touch on a couple of points about how you guys can benefit as schools and adding EV charging to your facility. So one, of course, you can enhance your brand reputation, attract forward thinkers. People expect schools to be kind of at the forefront of innovation and sustainability. And they're expecting, schools to kind of take that on and help with, increasing adoption for electric vehicles. I think another piece to that is also increasing employee and customer satisfaction. So you have students, you have teachers, maintenance that might have EVs and they're at your facilities. They expect to be able to charge similarly to what they might do at home or at their apartment building or in a retail center. Another huge point is reducing your carbon footprint. So obviously talked about sustainability and expecting schools to be at the forefront of that. And you can actually see the greenhouse gas emissions that are avoided by charging on our dashboard. And there's also low carbon fuel credits that are also a part of EV charging. Another piece is providing a revenue source from customer charging. So you're not just expected to put these in and kind of, pay for the electricity that's being used by the people that are charging. You can actually have an asset that's revenue generating, and you can set different rates. You might, have staff charge for free and then charge students or charge the public, depending, if you're a university that might be in a city or something like that. You can also benefit by accessing rebates and federal tax credits. So we'll talk about these in a little bit, but now is kind of the time. These are out and we don't know what changes are going to happen. Obviously, there's new administration and everything. So you want to take advantage of these as soon as possible before they might go away, because you don't really know when they're going to get added back. And then lastly, spending less on fuel and maintenance costs. So EVs, studies have shown that EVs are actually easier and less costly to maintain than ICE vehicles. So the plan and key questions to consider, you might be asking, first things first, what type of chargers are available? What do I need? Most people who don't have EVs don't really know what this looks like. So just to kind of go over that real quick, there's a level 1 charger, which is 120 volt. It can plug into like a wall outlet at your home. This is a charger you might get with your Prius or a hybrid vehicle. This usually takes day, 2 days, 3 days to charge your vehicle. And this is more for home charging. It doesn't have software, access management, things like that. But for school facilities, level 2 is kind of the bread and butter. This is what you're going to want to look for. So these are 240 volt and they basically charge in 4 to 8 hours. It's more of that longer dwell time. They can range anywhere from 32 amps to 80 amps. I'd say the 40, 48 range is probably where you're going to want to be, because people are, parked there for the school day. They might be there for 8 hours or so, maybe a little bit less. And this is kind of maybe ones you guys have seen in public at your local, retail center or multifamily complex. And lastly, there are level 3 DC fast chargers. So these things are obviously quite a bit bigger. They take a lot more infrastructure. They're more expensive. And this is kind of more of your like 15 minutes to an hour quick charge type of scenario, depending on how much power the charger has. And this might be useful for schools in certain situations where you have, school buses or maintenance vehicles where you just need a quick charge. Or if it's a public setting, like I said, where you have a facility in a city or something like that, but probably going to be focused more on level 2 or a little bit of a mix and maybe have like one fast charger. So obviously with all that, a big question that comes up, of course, is the budget. So we kind of want to work with you to make sure that we're able to fit within that constraint of your budget. There's obviously an ROI on these things, being that they are revenue generating. So usually only over a couple of years, they can have a decent return on investment and then just be profit after that. But we'll take a look and make a recommendation for what's best for your facility. And then we also have different financing options. So you can purchase the chargers up front as CapEx and kind of own the chargers, own the revenue, set the rates and everything like that, which will obviously help with. But we also have different options where we'll kind of bundle in the chargers and the infrastructure and just charge a monthly fee if that's better for you. Lastly, on the budget, incentives and credits are a huge piece. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but Switch can actually help you take advantage of different incentives, whether it's on the federal level or at the local utility or state level. And these are limited availability and nobody really knows what's going to happen in the future. So it's kind of now is the time to take advantage. And just to go through a couple incentives that are available for schools in California right now, the alternative fuel vehicle refueling property tax credit, the 30C tax credit for a little bit easier of a title there. But this one, you can get up to 30% off your project as a tax credit, and Switch can help you file for this. We have the Communities in Charge program, which recently launched in California. I think this is up to $6,500 per port for the installation and the equipment of EV charging. They do prioritize sites that are a little bit further down the line with site plans and permits and stuff, but the application isn't due until the end of January. So if you guys are already kind of at that point and you want somebody to get on site to take a look and start coming up with some designs, you'd have a good chance of getting that funding for the program. And you can still apply without that, but it's just kind of on a tiered basis of who's preferred. Lastly, you mentioned these local utility programs. I'm sure you guys are familiar with PG&E and SCE. I know SDG&E also has incentives out there as well, the Power Your Drive School program, but just let us know, reach out, and we can definitely, help you. We have experts on this type of thing, so we can help you secure the incentives and the funding. And with that, I will pass it over to Jeff to talk about the system and the path forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. That was a really good, very brief but overview of Ryan wants to provide kind of the EV landscape of what's going on in our industry, and how we just look about each project. What I want to go over is really what makes Switch unique from the industry and from competition. So we'll start the software, kind of move to hardware, and then we'll kind of give you an idea of how we look and we design each project. So can we get the next slide, please? So really, it's these four pillars that kind of make us very unique. There's the infrastructure, the chargers, our software, the driver experience, and the O&M support. Let's go over the chargers and infrastructure. Next slide. Perfect. So one of the things we really want our clients to think about and kind of start with is this OCPP standard protocol. And what this is in really simple terms is being able to have the ability to integrate our software onto multiple hardwares. And why that's important for a lot of our clients is the ability to have some flexibility, right? Being able to have that ability, it's a pretty powerful thing. For example, if you were to purchase from a company that isn't OCPP compliant, and and the company raised their network rates, let's say in that following year by 50%, what would happen? Well, there's two options. You would pay the additional fee, or you would have to rip out the entire product and software and install a whole new system, which is very expensive. With the ability of OCP and the hardware and software side, what happens is you have the ability to move out the hardware or software and add a whole new company in. And the way I kind of describe to clients is how cell phones used to be, and now it's different. When you used to buy an iPhone and you go to Verizon, you were stuck with them through your end of the contract. Now you have the ability to move your iPhone from Verizon to Sprint to AT&T and have that ability really on your customer service experience and obviously pricing. And that's what we want to provide for our customers, right? That flexibility to say, if you're unhappy with Switch for whatever reason within that 1 year and you wanted to move out, you have that ability. So that's a really big topic for here at Switch. Next slide, please. And some of these charges that we have, so we have about 26 hardware providers that we work with, but there are a few that are on our top tier. So we have Zorova, Lion, EVBox, Wallbox, and LG. And again, the world that I always kind of reiterate with our client is the flexibility. Is how does that experience that you go through each of these manufacturers? There might be something that you like with one or not the other, and having that ability on our end to back end integrate our software through each one really gives you a lot more options for your project. Next slide, please. All right, next slide. Perfect. So these are the common questions that really are asked about our software. And we'll go over each one. So one of the questions is, how do I know how much revenue I've made? Well, through our dashboard, that calculation is done automatically. You set the price. Let's say, for example, you want to charge the students or the faculty 40 cents a kilowatt an hour. They charge for 4 hours. That's $1.60 for that charge. That automatically gets withdrawn from the driver and gets collected through our back end. So we would see that total revenue and collect that total amount. And then by the end of the quarter, we redistribute it back to the university. Another question is, how does the driver pay us for the electricity? Great question. So we would calculate what the average cost is from the utility side. So for example, if your SCE utility right now, I think on average, it's about 30 cents a kilowatt per hour. So we want to just make sure we either cover the costs or we make some type of percentage of profit. So again, we'll go back to our example. It's 30 cents for the electricity. We want to charge 40 cents. We're going to cover the electricity cost and then make a revenue. What if all the chargers are on at the same time? Well, that's great. How we design each of the projects or all the station is we want them to be charged all at the same time, right? We want to have the ability, the load capacity from the building to properly charge all the stations at the same time. And at the same time, we'll talk more about energy management in a few slides. We're able to really reduce that infrastructure cost with switch control and be able to add more station too. And we'll talk about that in a few more slides. What if a driver leaves his car in an EV car in an EV charging spot? So this happens all the time. We know this. Let's say, for example, the charging limit is 3 hours a day and someone leaves their car for 6 hours. We actually have a loading fee in our features. So we can maximize that time, let's say 3 hours, and any additional hour that they're there, we can charge a fee of $5, a $10, whatever the administration really wants to set that rate at, really will help motivate people to move out of the car. Another thing, what happens if something breaks? So that's a good question. We do offer an extended warranty. We call it CARE. So from 1 to 5 years, where we can bring our own technician out and replace anything. There are standard warranties for a lot of these products. A lot of the stations are 2 years. And then if we were to also do the installation side, so if we're going to install it with our partners as well, they have a 1-year warranty. So there are mechanisms to make sure they're taken care of. And on the backside as well, our software is always being proactive. So we send a message to the stations. The stations, if they're working, will send a message back to us. If that's working perfectly, we're all good. If the message doesn't get sent back, then we reach out to our clients and say, hey, station number 7 has not been working or replying to us the last 5 minutes. Please send someone out to check that and make sure the station is up and running. So that's how we can monitor all these stations. And then who can have access chargers? I think Ryan had mentioned this. There are obviously going to be tiers through each faculty of the university, right? You'll have maybe the executive team with the price, setting the price of time of use. And then you might have your maintenance who just wants to make sure those are running. We can essentially tier the securities, so not everyone will have access all the time of what needs to get done on their to-do list. Next slide. Great. And so, yeah, this is just what the software on the back end looks like, or our dashboard. Again, all this information that I just mentioned earlier, you can access this through. And another good part too that has it through our dashboard is just the amount of reporting. So if we want to know how many drivers are being charged at what time on what station, that is in the dashboard as well. Another part that I'd mentioned about the alerting, we have a feature of cars that are being plugged in and cars that are being charged. So we obviously want that one-to-one, right? We want someone charging 4 hours and being plugged in 4. If there's a big discrepancy, then we know perhaps we need to increase our loading fee to get people moved and motivated to move out of the way. Next slide, please. Infrastructure, big topic, right? Especially here in California, a lot of buildings just were never built in mind to have so much EV stations and additional infrastructure to be pulled from the grid. So one of the things that we have created, and it's, haven't really seen this a lot in our industry, is our switch control. Next slide, please. And what that is load management. There's, it's pretty standard in terms of the EV industry, meaning a lot of different manufacturers have this load management, but it's a very, I would say, pretty simple in terms of if they're at 7 kilowatts and they wanted to power share it 4-to-1, you can literally take one of that outlet and you can split it, which means the power would be reduced and you could add more station. That's a pretty, I think, typical usage of a lot of different manufacturers. But what we do, next slide, perfect, is we actually have a CT clamp that gets attached to the panel side of the building. And that way we can essentially do a real-time load study of what needs to be used on either on the building side to the station side, and not just focus on the station side. And so I'll give a little demonstration here. Can you next slide? Perfect. And click it again. Great. And so what you can see here is if there is not enough power, and if you see the electrical capacity, right, as it is. So this is what normally would happen. If you go to a building and there's very little power and you add a lot of stations, it can really overload the system. And that's never good. That's how you burn the system out and how you blackouts. And that's not what we want. What we want to do is know that if there's not enough power, obviously for the capacity. And what the CT clamp does is, go to the next slide, Ryan. It utilizes and it will bring down the power back down. And so if the building has additional power, we can push that to the station side. And then so from the last slide, it was at 5 o'clock. When the building needs more power, we can move the power from the station back to the building. And then this is obviously a residential, it's a little different side. But once, let's say, universities, a lot of students, are home and on the power goes down, we can shift the power back to the station and they can charge overnight as well. And so that control that we provide, that CT clamp, is really unique in this industry, giving that ability to transfer the necessary power from building to station without adding infrastructure costs. So when we talk about infrastructure costs, it's very generic term, but that's going to the utility, going into the SE, PG&E, whoever your utility is, asking them to bring more power in. And that cost is normally anywhere from like $100,000 to $200,000. There's engineering costs, there's obviously labor costs. They're bringing a new transformer in. It's something we want to avoid until the demand at the university level requires us to bring more power in. And then we would go into that conversation. Next slide. And then the driver experience. Next slide. There are multiple ways you can utilize our stations. The best way and the most convenient is through our app. So if you're if you're an employee or student, would be the first choice. You download the app, you put your information, how you want to access your bank account, pretty much standard. Let's say, for example, I am visiting, I'm a professor, and I'm just here for the day to present. We actually have a QR code on our station. So you get your phone, you take a picture, you add your information in there, you charge, you're good to go. Nothing needs to get added to your phone, then you're off and running. The other side is perhaps, let's say you have fleets, you have maintenance, and they may have some trucks, and they don't want, obviously you wouldn't be charging them. They just need the station to charge for work. We can do our RFD cards, tap it in, they can charge, and then off the way it goes. So there's multiple ways really you can access our stations, and gives a lot of flexibility as well. Next slide. Next slide. Great. And then support. 24/7, 365 days. Our call centers, are not third party. Everyone is in-house in our warehouse or in our headquarters in Toronto. So they know and understand the system on the back end. And then I think Ryan had mentioned our uptime it's I would say best in class, but if you can look through the industry, 98.5% is pretty, it's one of the best for sure in the industry. So again, we can provide all that is included into our costs, and then our care is an additional cost if you like us, again, more of a extended warranty, or I would call it insurance plan, for us to bring our own service, individuals out to the stations as well. Next slide, please. All right, and then the path forward. Next slide. So this is the slide I really love for everyone to think about, because when we have this conversation, I think a lot of the times we buy a hardware and we plug it in and it works. And I think the way I think about it, it's less like a television purchase and more like building a house. And so in that realm, yes, we are the hardware, software, and the customer service, but we do provide a full turnkey experience with our partners. So we work with general contractors, with engineers, with designers. They build the entire program for you. And then more obviously the hardware, and then more the service. So this is really the 4 steps that takes everything from A to Z. And I always have this conversation that, the sooner you can work on it, the better, because everything takes some time, especially if, for example, we're trying to find funding or time rebates for local utilities. Those are very small. They're very small windows throughout the years. And so the earlier we can work on, the better we have an idea of design, budget, how many stations are going on the ground, how much capacity you have, and then how much funding can we look for each university. Next slide. And then one of the case studies. So Portland State was looking for really for us to come in and future-proof their campus. So the current installation was 7 L2 chargers, but we also added some more on the back end. And that's something that working with us, working with the designers, we can help you kind of think about, because of course, the university, maybe they're starting to kind of build the idea, but in the long run, they would like to add, 7 or 20 or 30 or 40 really percent of the total parking lot. We want to be able to have that conversation of what that looks like in terms of cost, timing, and budget. Something that we were easily done, and we did it on time for Portland State. Next slide. And that's it. And so now I think the best part is the Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please let us know. We'd love to answer and see if we can help out with any of your projects.
That was great, guys. Thanks so much for that. I've got some questions that were sent directly, but those who are watching in the chat, this is your time. What questions you have, this is it. Burning questions, burning barriers, stumbling blocks that you're considering on your campus, send them this way in the chat. But some questions that I got already. So when starting out, how many chargers do you recommend, or how do you walk somebody through the process of asking questions for them to figure that big question out? Do I get 2? Do I get 200? What are the factors that determine that?
Yeah, I can take that. Thanks, Greg. So I would say a general recommendation is usually 10% of parking spots. That's a good start, especially with how much EVs are growing, but I think like you saw that Portland State case study, they just did 7. So you can start with something in the 5 to 10 range just to kind of get your feet wet. And then, if that's how much capacity you have, if you want to avoid kind of costly infrastructure upgrades, you can start with that 5 to 10 and then add from there. But a general recommendation is probably 10%. There's a couple of things you can do too. A lot of times people will survey their students and staff or their tenants if it's a multifamily, and they'll kind of see how many people have EVs and are looking for charging or maybe want an EV in the future. And a lot of times we'll see that actually installing chargers will cause people to start getting EVs after the fact, because now that they know they can charge at their workplace. So 10% is a general recommendation, 5 to 10 to just get your feet wet and then kind of see how it goes from there, or see what incentives are there and how much capacity, just to make sure we're within budget. But I'd say as much as you possibly can within the budget.
Right. Another question is about cost. How much generally to install L level 2 versus DC fast, kind of ballpark? What are we looking at in regards to the ballpark that would be in for both those kind of levels of chargers on campus?
Jeff, coming from the install side, do you want to take that?
Yeah, no problem. There are always asterisks, again, because infrastructure, building, the older it is, the more infrastructure you need to put in. But on average, how we're seeing right now for an L2 can be anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 per station. And again, this is conduits, labor, permitting, engineering, all in. In terms of the L3, it's very expensive, but again, because there's a lot of power, you can probably spend anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 per station. Again, just because you need so much power, right? And that's really what it is. And just it's the different materials and different labor costs. So very two different types of, obviously very extreme. And again, that's kind of the idea where we come across a lot of clients that want to put 10 L3s, on their properties. And then they look at the cost and it doesn't really make sense. I would say for a university, if you would, again, because you have some people there for a couple hours and leaving and going. But I think for the majority in L2, because we're probably looking at anywhere from 8 to 10 hours throughout the day, people are charging, would be perfect for each facility.
Another question around pricing. So we have time of use, so different prices throughout the day. What are the different pricing structures that you recommend, given the variance can be quite big between different times of use? Can you actually charge drivers different prices based on when they charge in the day? Kind of talked about some different pricing structures that exist.
Yeah, so you can set different rates for different groups, and then you can also have time of use and time of day pricing, where it'll change based on the time of day. If, say, the utility rate is higher at a certain time due to the demand, you can set a higher rate for that time and kind of cover your basis. We'll actually work with you when you're getting onboarded and the units are commissioned to setting those rates. Say the commercial rate is 20 cents per kilowatt hour, you might want to set that to 30 or 35 cents per kilowatt hour to cover that, and then add a little bit of cushion on there for extra profit.
Great. And then also on the money side, incentives. How does Switch help when it comes to incentive? Do you do it all? Do you advise? Love to learn more about your role with incentive application and facilitation.
I could talk about that one. Yeah, we work fully as a team. We have a strategy team if we want to work on larger federal grants. And then a lot of our team, the BDMs, Brian and I, will also look on local. So we have all that information so we can help build the actual package for you. Of course, our clients still are very involved, because in the end, a lot of these incentives are essentially agreements with these local utility, federal, whoever's giving you the money still wants to make sure that you understand, we want to make sure these stations are working for a certain amount of time, and this is why we're giving you the incentives. So we would build the application, we'll have all the information, but step by step, the client will still be involved, understand what's entailed and what they're signing off for, but we can handle the entire process. Again, from design to installation to the hardware, which is us, and then the rebate. We could provide a full turnkey for any university.
And we're actually approved on a lot of the California, I guess, APLs or product lists for networking and also hardware. And we are a trade ally with most of the utilities too. I know we've done applications on behalf of schools and other buildings for SCE and SDG&E and some of the other ones too.
Great. I've got one more around installation. So we have at our campus, we have a facilities department. And when it comes to installation, do you guys work with our facility contractors? Do you do it yourself? Do you bring someone else in? How does that dance work?
Yeah, we are very open. So it could be a la carte. We work with, let's say your facility, say you have a whole team that can do the infrastructure. So the conduits are wiring and they can handle the panel. Great. We can remove that part. We want to just be available in any part of that pillar. So design, installation, hardware, and manage. If we're not needed and you have a team, we can work with them as well. We can provide all the installation guides, all the specs for our hardware. If it's pedestals or non-pedestals, we can provide all that information to your team, and then they can install it. And then we can provide simply the hardware and software and guide them through that process. So really, I would say, yes, more like an a la carte. If you need us to do the full turnkey, great. If you need to just do 50% or just 25%, great. We're really flexible in that way and be able to work with multiple teams.
Great. The last one, Richard sent one in the public chat here. Does Switch also help with the design of generation and storage solutions in addition to EV chargers? Do we involve generation and storage solutions?
Short reason, I was just in a webinar for battery storage. We obviously don't offer that in terms of our product and services, but it definitely is in that conversation. So we do have partners that we can bring in, and they would obviously work with us in terms of how that overall, what that looks like in the future, right? Same thing. We have another partner that I work closely with that does solar panels, right? For universities on roofs, so parking lots. And it's great because all these things in the green space all work with each other. You have solar panels, you have battery storage, and then you have EV charging. Us not being an expert, we'll never say, hey, we can, provide that and put that to our system. But we do have the ability to work with our partners to build the ecosystem that will work for the site. So hopefully I've answered your questions, but yes, we have partners that we can work with and kind of build the dream site that you're looking for in terms of battery storage.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. There's no other last questions that I've seen. I've gone through the ones that were sent to me. Richard's, yours there. Guys, thank you so much. If you have questions or interested in having a deeper conversation about your location, incentives, their emails are there, as well as you'll get an email from us probably tomorrow that has contact information as well as this recording. Reply back, ask any questions. We're here to help. And otherwise, yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the day. Have a great
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.